Have you ever felt like there are two versions of you living inside the same person? One that wants to do what is right and one that keeps pulling you in the wrong direction. You make a decision, you feel strong about it, you say, this time is different, and then you feel later that you're back at the same place again. You know what is right, but you don't always choose it. You want peace, but your mind feels restless. You want consistency, but you feel divided. At some point, whether you say it out loud or not, you start asking a deeper question. What is wrong with me? Because it feels personal. It feels like something inside of you is not working the way it should. Last week, we said something very important. You were created very good. You're created with a purpose. You were created in the image of God. Your worth was not something you earned. It was given. So now the question becomes, if that is true, why do I feel like this? Why is there this tension inside of me? Why do I feel pulled in two different directions? The Bible does not ignore that question. It actually explains it. The answer does not start with you. It starts before you. Genesis 3 tells us what went wrong on earth, but scriptures also shows us that the problem did not begin here. Before there was brokenness in humanity, there was rebellion in heaven. There was a created being, Lucifer, who lived in the presence of God in a perfect environment with no lack, no pain, no insecurity, and yet something started to grow inside of him. Pride, jealousy, a desire for a position that was not his. Isaiah described his thoughts. I will ascend. I will raise my throne. I will make myself like the Most High. That is not just ambition. That is a rejection of God's place. Instead of trusting God, he wanted to replace God. And that same spirit led him to spread his ideas to others. The Bible described this as his spreading his influence, his trade. His thinking, he began to question God's character, to suggest that God was limiting, that God's authority was restrictive, that there was a better way to live outside God's design. Eventually, this led to conflict in heaven. Revelation describes a war, a conflict of loyalty, trust, and truth. And Lucifer and those who followed him were cast out. Now, the rebellion that began in heaven comes to earth. Now, here is a question people often ask, and it is an honest question. If God knew all of this would happen, why didn't he stop it in the beginning? Why create Lucifer if he knew Lucifer would rebel? Why allow any of this to unfold? Because if we are honest, that is what we would do. If something threatens what we love, we remove it quickly. But God does not operate out of fear. He operates out of truth and love. The issue in heaven was not just behavior, it was trust. Lucifer was spreading a lie about God, about who God is, suggesting that God could not be trusted, that his authority was limiting, and that life would be better outside of his design. If God immediately removed Lucifer, the question would remain in the minds of every created being. Is God just eliminating opposition? Is Lucifer right? Is God hiding something? So instead of forcing obedience, God allowed the consequences of rebellion to be seen fully. Not because he wanted suffering, but because he wanted the truth to be clear. God is not trying to control love, he's protecting it. Because love only works when it's chosen freely. And for love to be chosen freely, truth has to be real. That means the alternative has to be exposed. And that is why the story unfolds the way it does. Not because God is distant, but because he is relational. He's not building a system of forced loyalty. He's revealing his character in a way that every created being can see and choose for themselves. And we are living in that moment of the story. And this is where Genesis 3 enters the story. God had created Adam and Eve in a perfect environment. Everything they needed was already provided. They had a direct relationship with God. They were not guessing who He was. They knew Him. He spoke to them. He walked with them. He warned them about the danger. He gave them one boundary, not as a trap, but as a protection. Because love without choice is not love. And obedience was not about control, it was about trust. And then comes the moment that changes everything. The serpent speaks, and the temptation is very specific. You will be like God. Not just eat something, but become something. Take control, define reality for yourself. Decide what is right and what was wrong in your own terms. And here's what is important. They were not uninformed. They knew God. They knew His voice. They knew His instruction. This was not ignorance. This was a choice. They chose to trust the voice of the serpent over the voice of God. And the moment they made that choice, everything shifted. And what shows up first is not external punishment. It is an internal brokenness. The Bible says they realized that they were naked and they hid. Shame entered human experience. Before sin, they were fully known and not afraid. After sin, they felt exposed and afraid. They hid from God. They hid from each other. And when God came looking for them, something else appeared. Blame. And Adam says, the woman you gave me. Adam here is actually blaming God. Eve says, the serpent deceived me. Responsibility is replaced with deflection. Relationship is replaced with distance. Trust is replaced with fear. And this is not just their story. This is your story. This is my story. This is why you feel what you feel. Because something inside humanity broke at that moment. And you live with the effects of that every day. That is why you can know what is right and still struggle to do it. That is why you can love God and still feel distant. That is why you want to change and still repeat patterns. That is why Paul described this internal conflict so clearly when he says, the good I wanted to do, I do not do. But the very thing I hate, I keep doing it. That is not weakness. That is brokenness. And it has an explanation. You were created whole, but you are living in a broken story. And this also explains something else. Why the world around you feels the way it does. Because if life is disconnected from God, then everything starts to shift. Instead of selfless love, we move towards selfishness. Instead of trust, we move towards control. Instead of seeing people as valuable, we start seeing people as competition. And you see this everywhere. In small ways, like stepping over someone to get ahead. In large ways, like conflict, violence, and systems built on power and survival. The idea that only the strong survive begins to shape how people think and act. But that is not how we were created to live. That is the result of separation from God. And here is something important to understand. God did not create evil. Evil is what happens when created beings choose to move away from God, who is the source of our goodness. Just like darkness is not something created, it is the absence of light. Evil is the absence of God's presence in a choice. And God allowed that possibility because He gave real freedom. He did not want robots. He wanted real love. But real love always comes with real risks. And we are living in the consequences of those choices. So when you feel that tension inside of you, when you feel divided, when you feel like part of you wants God and part of you resists Him, understand this. That is not your identity. That is your condition. There is a difference. Your identity is still rooted in God, but your condition has been affected by sin. And if you confuse those two things, you will either excuse everything you do or you will condemn yourself completely. But the Bible gives a clear picture. You were created good, but something has been broken. And here is the part that changes everything. The moment sin entered, God did not step away. He stepped in. He came looking for Adam and Eve. He called them, he covered them, he made a way forward. Even in Genesis 3, you begin to see the beginning of a plan that would eventually lead to Jesus. Because God was not willing to leave humanity in a broken condition. But before we talk about what God does, we need to be honest about what we usually do. Because when we feel this tension inside of us, we don't stay neutral. We try to fix it. Some people try to fix by doing better, trying harder, becoming more disciplined, more consistent, more spiritual. Others go to the opposite direction. They stop trying. They distract themselves. They avoid it. They fill their lives with noise so they don't have to think about what is happening inside. And both of those responses have something in common. They are both attempts to deal with the tension on your own, either by effort or by escape. And for a while, it can feel like it works. You improve a little, you feel more in control, or you stay busy enough that you do not feel as much, but eventually the tension comes back. Because the problem is deeper than behavior. It is just what you do. It is what is happening inside. And this is where many people get stuck. They spend years trying to manage something that actually needs to be restored. And if you don't understand that, you will either live exhausted from trying or disconnected from avoiding. But neither one leads to peace. Because peace does not come from fixing yourself. It does not come from ignoring yourself. There has to be another way. So if you feel divided, if you feel guilty, if you feel shame, if you feel like you are fighting yourself, there's an explanation. You're not crazy. You're not alone. You are living in a broken story. But that is not where the story ends. If something is broken, the real question is not just how to fix it, but who can fix it. Because what you're dealing with is not just behavior, it's not just habits, it's something much deeper. And no amount of trying harder has been able to fully resolve it. So the question becomes, what has God done about it? Next week, we are going to look at what God actually did in response to this. Not what you do for God, but what God has done for you. Because if the problem is deeper than behavior, then the solution has to be deeper too. If you're watching this later on YouTube and you wanted to be part of this live, check the description below. You will find the information there on how to join us every week. I would love for you to be part of the conversation, not just watch it. I would love to see you next time. And we are back. Well, we've been here the whole time. You've been listening to me, but I'm here live now. So, welcome back. Like always, I like to have a little poll for us to do because in the poll is where we get some questions where it helps us start the conversation. But I have to launch, then stop, allow the panelists to be able to participate, and then relaunch. And I'm doing that right now. So now the poll is open and ready for you all, including the panelists, to participate. Please do, because this helps us gauge where we are, and the conversations become really good when we get it. While we're doing that, I want to just say hi to a few more people that joined us after. Paul, welcome. Jacob, Anthony, Welcome, welcome. I'm happy you all here. There is a phone number that doesn't have a name, so welcome. Put your name in the chat. We'd like to know who is here. Just say hi. And the questions in the poll are: after today's message, does your internal struggle make more sense to you? Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite questions. Does it help you understand why do you struggle so much? I'm going to be honest with you, the topic for today was one of the most important topics in my reluctancy to accept God, to accept that God existed, but also the topic that when it finally makes made sense in my mind is when I gave myself to Christ, because there was so much that I could just not accept. And understanding this, and okay, this was a very short sermon. This it was only like 13 minutes. And if this is the first time that you're hearing this message, this probably still not going to make sense to you. And it's fine, because even though I heard for the first time 20 years ago, I'm still studying every day. As I teach, I learn because I'm preparing. And 20 years later, this is making sense to me. But it's okay if it still doesn't make sense to you. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking. And by the way, a little plug in. I love doing Bible studies. Let me know if you wanted to do a Bible study with me. Question number 2 says, which part of the message stood out to you the most? Yes, I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to understand what is that. Wow, this was different. Number 3, before today's message, did you see your struggle more as a condition rather than your identity? Does that make sense to you? Is it easy for us to understand that? Number 4, which idea challenged you the most? Trusting God versus myself, the idea of free will. Oh, the topic of free will, we can go a whole season just on that. Is, I think, one of the most important things for us to understand in our Christian journey, and one of the hardest things to really make sense. The role of shame, the idea that the problem is deeper than behavior. Number 5, after today, how do you view your struggle? Number 6, do you feel more open talking about your struggles after this message? Number 7, which response do you recognize more in yourself now? And number 8, do you feel like you need a different approach to your struggles than what you've been doing? I believe everybody already answered, so I am going to stop unless somebody put in the chat, no, please wait 1 second. I got one more answer, so I will wait a few more seconds just because I want to make sure I don't cut anybody. If you still need more seconds, please put in the chat. Otherwise, going once, going twice, and I'm ending. Okay. Very good. Now I wanted to invite the panelists to turn on their cameras. Hey, Johnny was ready with his hand on the camera. Johnny, do me a favor, turn your phone to horizontal, because when we do, there you go. Yes, so welcome. I have Marcos twice. Let's see in which camera he's going to show up. Okay, welcome. Some of you are back for the first time this season, like Johnny. Xavier is coming back for the second time this season, and Deja is brand new in our online church. So let's start with Deja. Deja, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your name, where you're coming from, what you do, just to introduce you to our online church.
Hello, my name is Deja. I'm from Kernersville, well, born and raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Currently live in Kernersville, North Carolina. And I'm a teacher for sixth grade.
Awesome. Awesome. Deja, we met at camp meeting, and I think we are seeing each other like every year now at camp meeting. So happy you're here. Everybody else, I believe, is already known to the online church, but still, there may be people here for the first time. So, start with Johnny. Just say your name, where you live, and that's it. Johnny, I don't know if it's your internet. Oh, you're muted.
Hello.
There you go.
Perfect. My name is Johnny Villamil. So good to be back for another season. Very happy. Um, I live in Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I am a surgical.
Johnny, I think it's your internet. See if you can connect to Wi-Fi because we can barely. I mean, it's breaking up. Thank you, Marcos.
Hello there, my name is Marcos. I am based in Rockingham, North Carolina, and I am a full-time worker in a monument company and a part-time student.
There you go. Riding in a car. That's the beauty of online church. As long as the internet works. Xavier.
Hey, I'm Xavier Moss. I'm in Orlando, Florida, and I'm an art educator and artist. And this is all my paint. That's all paint. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Xavier, first time we met in person was at Young Adult Life Tour in Kentucky, and he just sat next to us and he was painting and painting. And I definitely don't have that talent, but I was inspired and I started painting. I'm painting now. I'll show you some of my painting, but I need some lessons, please.
You. Got you.
Yes, yes. So, welcome everyone. We have a lot of people on the chat here. So this is a place not only for the panelists, but also for the people in the chat. If you, everything that I'm going to talk about it, I want to hear from the panelists, but I also want to hear from the people in the chat. Write it, all of your stuff. I don't care if it's a whole book. I want your participation. Some people are here just for the online church. Some people are here doing me a great favor of being part of my doctorate project because this online church became also part of my doctorate project. So I really appreciate you doing this. This is a huge favor that you're doing for me, but it's something that in the future will help other people, you know, because your answers, your participating, your answers will tell us how to reach young adult. So that is the whole point. It's not just helping me, but helping the future generations. Us pastors know how do we reach you better. So thank you guys for doing this. So let's start with our conversation. After today's message, does your internal struggle makes more sense? A lot of people said yes. Some people said no. Actually, 90% said yes, but other people said no. So now I would love to know what are the struggles? What is the difficult? And what is it that you guys are trying to make sense for those that are still trying to make sense? So if you're in the chat, if you're in the panel, please, I would love to hear from you. Okay. So the question to the panel, even if it wasn't you that said no, this doesn't make sense. Let's talk about this a little bit. Xavier, what do you think it could be the answer? He's like me.
Can you re-ask it for me one more time?
Okay, so for some people, even after the message for today, understanding why we feel so broke, the struggle that we feel inside of us still doesn't make sense. Why do you think uh, that could be the situation?
I think one of the reasons for that could be sourced in misapplication of scripture if they've been exposed to it. So like if you have read like Romans or Philippians, some New Testament books, some verses in there like taken out of context can almost like I mean they do glorify struggles, but when you read the framework like around it. It's not this like masochistic, like I love struggling. It's my lot in life. It's not that. It's more like in a fallen world, you will, face trials. And in the midst of those, where can God do miracles? Like that's a very paraphrased version of those. And I would like heartily encourage you to go back and check out those two books particularly. But I feel like it can get to this weird toxic Christianity of like, oh, the struggle is gonna make me a better Christian. So instead of like seeking like understanding from the spirit about like what all is happening internally, we just kind of say, I'm just gonna double down on the struggle and make it harder on myself. And it's like, whoa, don't think that was what we were trying to do. So I think that's one possible reasoning for it.
It's that's why I love talking to different people because that was something that never came to my mind. And it's true. Uh, a lot of times, being suffering, struggling, it's a sign of humbleness, I would say. And if you're a true Christian, you have to go through these things. And it's kind of like people choose to stay in the struggle.
Well, it's like, and you see like these memes, I've seen it multiple times where, especially like when it's getting close to New Year's, and it's like somebody on the phone, it's like me making sure I'm not in God's most powerful warriors, like
Yeah.
plan for the next year. Because it's this idea of like, if you're like tight with him, then it's all coming for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This is the good thing about talking because we see different views that normally we wouldn't see it. Um, So I have here Isaac saying that he said no, but it's because of the word more. Like the problem and struggle reason had already made sense. I might have taken the question too literal. Hey, I'm the one making the question, so you're gonna have things that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's even though everything that I do, I pass through ChatGPT to make sure my grammar sounds decent. But still, it was my idea that maybe didn't make sense. But it's okay to say yes or no because my point here is not like, oh, did I help you make sense right now? That's not my point. My point is we need to talk about the struggles. We need to talk about what we go through. And I love that Xavier started with something different that I never had thought about it. The other thing that I think the struggles that things don't make sense, that was for me before I became a Christian, understood this, okay? But for me, the greatest struggle to understand this whole picture was the different message that we receive, the contradicting messages that we receive from what they say about God and what we see God's people doing. So, because of this contradicting message, it always made me not understand God's character. Does that make sense? Am I the only one? I'm not the only one. You guys are very quiet today. We have a quiet
I have a
panel.
question.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify, make sure I understood what you meant. So you're saying when you see God's people, people who say they are God's people acting in a hypocritical way, it tarnishes your view of God, is what you're trying to say?
In the past, it did. In the past, before I understood God, well, I used to be atheist. I don't know if you heard that part about me. So I used to be atheist. So one of the things that kept me away, and I had a lot of internal struggles to understand the character of God, was because I could only see what I could see were people's behavior. So when it was contradicting from what I saw the word of God, that was difficult for me. And I believe this is one of the things that doesn't help us with our internal struggles. Is that more clear?
Yes, and I can agree to that. Like, there was something that somebody told me They were like, hey, like a lot of times your parents are your first example of what God is like.
Hmm.
And when I thought about that and I meditated on that, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense because I
Hmm.
throw him under the bus. Sorry, Dad. But my dad was not very consistent in his promises. He'll be like, oh, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. Or even my mom sometimes, we'll do this, we'll do that, but it never happened. Or as I had to figure things out on my own. I had to do this, I had to take care of myself in a lot of areas. So I'm very self-sufficient to the point to where I don't ask for help or I don't really depend on others, which means I have a hard time trusting God, who is a consistent God, who keeps all his promises and all those things. And it's like I have it in my brain. I know you got me. But let me figure this out. It's just that's learning how to let go of like, okay. And so it's been a journey, but I've gotten better. I'm like, all right, Lord, like I'm the coordinator of VBS this year at my church for the first time ever. So I'm like, all right, I'm doing what I can. You bring the increase, you bring the blessing. I can't make this. Thank you, Lord, for the team that I have, and I'm leaving it in your hands. So yeah, just I
Yeah.
understand what you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Even though today we're not talking about understanding God's character in general, we're talking about like our own brokenness and how we struggle. Like if we were created very good in the image of God, why do we feel so broke? Why are we so divided? We're not talking about specifically God, but I think even this idea of what we just mentioned, it adds on to the struggle. Okay. Um, Oh, this one here, I was very curious. Uh, why? Because this topic was essential for me to become a Christian. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on it. Which part of today's message stood out to you the most? And the options were the conflict in heaven, the fall in Genesis 3, the idea of shame and hiding, and the inner struggle in Romans 7. 80% of people said that was the one that stood out the most was the inner struggle in Romans 7. So yeah, what stood out to you guys? The panelists or people in the chat, what stood out to you guys the most? Johnny, welcome back. Johnny, do you want to say something?
Happy to be back. I am not sure what happened there. I think the enemy is trying to get to us today, but um, well, I hope you can hear me now. I hope
Yeah, I can
everything
hear you well.
excellent. You know, I, of all the topics we've had here on the Way Online Church,
Mhm.
this is probably the most profound one, and the one where there's a lot of uncertainty. I think today there's still a lot of uncertainty around these things. There's a lot of things at play here. Okay. For me, I I do struggle a lot internally. I think of all the parts of the message, I think the one that most resonated with me is the one where I play part, my internal struggle, right? And there's a particular word that was used over and over and over again that resonated heavily with me, and it's the word broken, right? Broken. And it's hard to kind of accept sometimes that you're broken. That's something I struggle with, right? Sometimes I feel like I can fix it, I have a solution, but I am a broken person. I'm in a broken system, I live in a broken world. And I really struggle with the concept of brokenness and feeling broken. Sometimes I in denial that I am broken. That's a hard thing to admit, you know? And as Corey is saying, doubting can be a major problem. That's right, you know? But that's probably the biggest word that stood out to me, and I'd love to hear what the other panelists have to say. But being broken is really, really hard and hard to admit as well.
And that's why I like talking about it. Because it's hard for everybody to feel broken, but we understand that we're not alone on this. It does. At least for me, it feels like it helps. I think I saw Xavier raising his hand, and then I'm going to Deja.
Oh no, no, just Deja.
Just Deja. Okay,
I
Deja,
was just
go.
talking with my hands on my own. I don't
Got it.
know.
Um, Something that I thought of as Johnny was speaking. How do I say? The first step to healing is admitting there's a problem.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, that's why, even in the Bible, it's like God tells us to first confess your sins, admit the fact that you are broken, admit the fact that you have sinned, and then okay, we can work on this. But something else is like not focusing on that sin, not focusing on that brokenness, not focusing on that constant battle. And it's like turning your eyes upon Jesus, because, as you look upon his wonderful face, the things of the world will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. So, just keeping your eyes on him. And then I'll say, I will say this. When I hear, oh, keep your eyes on Jesus, some people are like, what does that mean? Keep your eyes on Jesus. What is that? Because you hear it all the time. What is that? I'm still defining it, but it's like, okay, Lord, I'm struggling with procrastination. I'm having a hard time just getting this all together. And it's like, you know what, Lord, I believe and have faith that you can deliver me from this. I claim right now that I'm free from procrastination through the power of your blood. I'm have faith and courage that you will get me through this. And that's what's been getting me through a lot of different like things. It's like, you know what? I am a child of God. Speaking the word over you. I am a child of God. We don't do that. Like we gonna get up and we gonna do what we need to do. We are diligent. So, yeah, turning your eyes on Jesus and truly studying his word and claiming his promises over you and speaking out loud who you are in Christ. What is your identity? Because that does something to your brain, according to neuroscientists. Um, but yeah, that's all I gotta add.
Yes, yes, it does something to our brain, and everything you said is it's so important for us to understand here how trust and brain activity and repetition, how the brain works with repetition of believing and trusting and all of that kind of thing. Thought came from Isaac, keep your eyes on Jesus. Lucifer was of those who probably saw Jesus every day but didn't have his eyes on him. Wow. I never even thought about, can you imagine seeing Jesus but really not having his eyes on him? Um, Being in proximity to Jesus doesn't mean you're trying to focus on him. Powerful, powerful. Yep, yep. It's a little bit of the series that we did last season that we were talking about having a situationship with Jesus. Sometimes we want all of the benefits that come of being in a relationship, but not really committed. I like this. Very good point. Anybody else had a comment on this? Like, what stood out the most to you on this message? If not, we're moving on.
Could you read the options again, please?
It is I mean, it's really anything that stood out to you. It doesn't have to be the four options that I put here, but the options that I put was the conflicting heaven, the fall in Genesis, the idea of shame, and the inner struggles in Romans 7. But it's truly just anything.
Yeah, no, I think we already discussed what
Okay.
comment.
Okay, don't worry. How about the idea of the thank you so much. I've been thirsty and begging my family, bring me water, please. Give me 1 second, guys. Start talking among yourselves there.
I just want to, I guess, piggyback on what has already been said. Um, Going off of what Johnny said about being able to admit that we're broken, and even touching a little bit on what the first question was. Um, Many times it's hard to admit that we're broken, but at the same time, every fiber in our being knows it. Like, we've all gone through that experience of wanting to do better, trying to do better, and for some reason not being able, feeling like we're not able to do better. Um, and obviously, today we were only speaking about why that happens. During the rest of the season, we'll be dealing with the plans that God has and the path that He has opened to help us get over that. Um, but again, although we don't want to focus on the struggle like we talked at first, uh, it's also important to recognize it because, and maybe this is just my experience, I grew up around very religious people that sometimes struggle with admitting the fact that they struggled. It's like, yeah, no, we don't talk about the struggle. And I think there's something very beautiful about um, the vulnerability that we're seeking, especially younger generations. Like we want to be real with God, real with ourselves, and real with each other. And I think that there are factors that are healed, areas in our life that are healed as we are honest in it, like in every single one of those ways. Because I would like to believe that, older people were already doing their part of being honest with God. We just struggle a little more with being honest with each other, and sometimes with ourselves.
Hmm.
But every single one of those aspects is very, very important to be able to deal with a problem. A phrase that I always remember that impacted me very greatly when I was a teenager. I read it somewhere, I don't remember. But the first step to solving a problem is recognizing that you have one. You'll never work to fix, you'll never allow yourself to be helped in an area where you don't feel like you need help. We will never reach out to God and ask for power, for mercy. We won't ever claim his promises if we don't feel like we need them.
Yes, yes. And I always keep bringing back to that balance. At the same time, we don't want to focus on the struggle, the brokenness, the problem. Uh, we need to deal with it. So we need to be aware of it, to be able to recognize, to be able to repent, to confess, and then move on, not live in it. But I think the biggest challenge that we have is that, and this is also a generational thing, because the older generation, the importance of saving face, the importance of showing to the world that I have a family that is well behaved, well organized, that my kids are behaving and things like that was everything to them. So we can judge them because that was the culture. Now we have a different culture where we value transparency more than we value saving face. So for us, because we value that, it's easier for us to talk about it. Therefore, it makes it easier for us to also deal with it. So it's also finding that balance between facing it, but not living there, dealing with the problem, and then not live in the problem. Xavier.
Yeah, like in the same vein that you're talking about, I think spiritually we've applied the adage of out of sight, out of mind to a
Mhm.
lot of areas, much to our detriment. So it's just like if I don't talk about it, then the problem doesn't exist, even though we're very much aware that it does and it's festering. But it's like if I starve it from giving it voice, then it will go away. It will peter off and die. And then on the other hand, with what I saw, Corey had mentioned the word like vulnerability and being transparent with one another. In moderation, everything in moderation, right? But sometimes we um, like for myself, I'm thinking that being cognizant of a struggle is sometimes no, all the time. Being cognizant of a struggle is tough because then you're aware of it and you're aware that you have a struggle and you get right back into the that passage from Romans 7 where Paul so eloquently, like, it's crazy that this is like thousands of years ago and it still captures where like so many of us find ourselves like, what I want to do I don't do, and the things that I don't want to do I do, and it's like bruh. um and at the same time, he's not like deifying the struggle. He's not giving it more power by just straight up saying it's there. He's just like, this is a problem. And I'm gonna level with you that I, as a minister of the gospel, am struggling with this. So I have to think, not that I'm above any of you, we all human, but if I'm struggling with this, I have to think there are others in this body of believers who are as well. And the only way that we, as a body of believers who are unified by Christ, are going to have a chance at overcoming this is if we are honest with one another about these struggles and praying without ceasing for one another and encouraging one another when we trip, when we fall, not if, but when. Um, so yeah, it's a fine balance that is only found when you invite the spirit into your heart. You cannot find that balance between vulnerability and, of course, like, no, not going around like to every person in the congregation being like, let me tell you, my strength. It's like, whoa. Like knowing who your life groups, the people that you can walk alongside day to day, that you can text at like 2 a.m. and be like, yo, I need you to hop on a call with me, or I'm going to do something I regret. Like those, you need that like legit accountability in your life. And you're only going to find it if you intentionally, with yourself, are like vulnerable and you can scale it. I think a lot of people live in fear of like, on day one, I'm going to have to share every like deepest, darkest thing that I've ever done. And it's like, no, like, I mean, just from personal experience, I share. Um, in like this was almost like 10 years ago, I got invited to go to a non-denominational church on a weeknight, and my friend was like, they have this like men's group that's really interesting. Like, and I want you to come see what it's about. And I was like, okay. And I went, and it was basically um think like AA structure, but alcohol wasn't the only vice that people were dealing with. And they had a women's section too, and then they had the men's section. And it was eye-opening to me because I had never experienced anything, and I'm not throwing shade at our denomination. I had never seen anything like that existing in the Adventist church, where it was a group of like 30 guys of all ages going from like early 20s up to like 70. Like, so very intergenerational, diverse. And then we all just went around the room and were saying, hi, I'm so and so, and I have a problem with. And it was so many things that I was like, how on earth could that be a problem? Like things that I had never registered as like somebody could be like addicted to anger, addicted to, like, it was so many things. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that fellow believers could struggle with that. And it gave space for me to, I don't want to say, I still felt bad about like what I was struggling with, but it was very much I'm not living in isolation of the struggle. This is something that permeates all believers, no matter if you've been in the game for 5 or 50 years, you're still struggling because you're on this side of eternity. So yeah.
You know what I like when first of all, I loved everything that you said, and I do want to get to a point that we have a safe enough space that we will feel comfortable and not judged, but helped get out of that, because there is a difference. Oh, like the trend that we had, we hear and we don't judge. Okay, that is the trend. And we are not supposed to judge and we shouldn't judge. But still, if the person is going through something that we know it's going to hurt that person, we want to help them get out of that without judging, without putting them down. So that is the dream, to create a group where we feel safe enough to be able to do that. But going back to Paul, what I love about the story of Paul, it's first of all how he can help us relate to our humanity. And so he struggled with those things, the same thing that I struggle today, and show how God is the God of Paul. It is my God, but also that Paul's resiliency, he didn't stop. He kept going. Even with the struggles that he had with people attacking him, with the internal struggles that he had, how many of us just say, you know what, until I like fix myself, I'm not going to serve God. I'm not going to go to church. I'm not going to come to God. How can I think about being a pastor with all of the mistakes that I make? Because other people expect pastors to be perfect, you know? And pastor was just the example that I thought of it because I'm a pastor. But I'm not saying, you know, you're cheating on your wife and you're going to be a pastor. I don't think so. What I'm talking about is like, you know, like those things that we give as, I cannot serve God because of this. And God is telling you, come and serve me, come and be with me. That's how I'm going to change you. And I think that's what Paul was talking about. That's what Paul was doing. He never gave up, he kept going. Let me read here in the chat. Isaac said it's inherent within us to seek to be the best that we can be. So problems that we face initially challenge that. So we are like, wait a minute. Really, I've got problems. Okay. I think, Isaac, you need to be on next week because then you can say these things. Because Pastor Chris reading here is not doing a good job, but I will try. Psst, my man, I'm the best. As mentioned by several folks, acceptance of being perfect is the first step in getting better. Accepting that we will never be perfect. God sees this, and that's why we were offered salvation in the first place. Absolutely. I would say we are really loved. Yes, we are. Xavier says here, we have a tendency to use continuous struggles as our excuse for not going to God. Yes, we experience guilt for not pursuing a walk with Him, and that guilt leads us to act out, thus perpetuating the very struggles we had in the first place. We think we must escape the struggle in and of our own volition. But God is the way out. That's the topic for next week. Next week's going to be fire. Deja, you had your little hand up and then you put it down. Do you still have something you want to say?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm yapping your heads off. But
No,
I like
that's
talking
what
about
we
the Lord.
want. We are here for that. You have the mic.
So something that I thought of while Xavier was talking, I thought of the end of chapter 7, verse 24 and 25. Oh, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? And 25, I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with the mind, I serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin. And it's like I can choose in my mind, I can make that choice to follow God, but I still have to deal with this sinful nature until, Jesus comes. And I would like to, with love, disagree that we will never be perfect because we will never be perfect in our own works, in our own trying to make ourselves perfect. If we look at um, Job God, when Satan came when in their meeting, he was like, "Hey, have you seen my servant Job? Like he is perfect and upright and in all his ways." But when we look at Job is like, "I'm far from perfect. I don't even know whatever." So it's like we can be perfect in God's eyes, but it's like as soon as we say like, "Oh yeah, I'm perfect. There's nothing wrong with me," then it's like, "Ugh, there's something wrong right there because you think you're perfect." But it's like when what is it? When we confess our sins and we're like, "Lord, I give my life to you. I surrender. I make this choice." It's like you're I'm not perfect, but Christ's righteousness is making me perfect. There it is. Oh, I was like, I don't want to say I'm perfect no. Christ's righteousness is covering me. So therefore, when God looks at me, he sees perfection, not my perfection, but Christ's perfection. So I can't say confidently that like we'll never be perfect, but Christ, when we are covered by Christ, we are perfect due to his righteousness and his glory. Um, and I think those were all the things I wanted to say.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a very good understanding and explanation. What are your thoughts on the idea that these struggles and this the way we see ourselves, the way we struggle in trying to do what is right and our brokenness, it's more a condition rather than an identity. Marcos, you look very.
Um, it's very freeing.
Mm.
Uh, but also, I think I would say this is one of those things that, like, you hear it, you agree with it, but you know that internalizing is going to take time because at least for me, maybe the people that were teaching me weren't trying to teach me this way, but what I understood was I am what I do. And if you ask anybody, oh, like, who are you to describe themselves, to describe ourselves, we mostly will tell you what we do. So when you understand that you have an identity outside of, beside of, other than what you do, like it's gonna take a minute for that to settle in. But
Go ahead.
but like I said, it's very freeing
Mhm.
because yes, I do broken things, but I have the choice to not stay broken. As we've been talking, I don't have to stay in that struggle. Like, yes, I do be acting struggle, but struggle is not my identity.
We
God has a lot to say about who we are, and struggle is not what He says to define us. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no. I didn't even realize that I started talking right in the middle. It's that brain that goes faster than I should. But we also should not lessen the seriousness of sin. You know, we are struggling, we're sinning, we're broken, we are the things that are right that I want to do, I don't do, the things that are wrong, I do it. And then we're like, this is just a condition, this is just what I'm living, it's not my fault, and I don't do anything to change. So let's not go to that side either. You know, like we have to be careful. But when we look at the reality that, yes, we're broken, yes, I'm sinning because of everything that happened. This is serious and I need to change and I need to hold on to Christ, put on his righteousness, accept Christ, change my life. We're coming to you, John, in just a second. Did you want to finish your thought, Marcos?
I would just say it's not that I need to change; I need to be changed. It's different.
Yes. Ooh, yes. Johnny.
I just want to say, Marcos, I didn't know you had a PhD in philosophy, man. I mean, that was unbelievable. Wow, we got Dr. Marcos. I mean, you know, I I have two emotions that I feel when I hear this. One of them is sadness. One of them is a little sad knowing that I have this vision of who I would like to be or who I'd like to say that I am, but because of this condition that we're talking about, it would be very difficult for me to actually become that well here on this earth. You know, I would like to be a great person. I'd like to do all these things. And I can make small steps towards that. I can get close, but it's sad knowing that this is a condition that we all share equally and we all suffer from, and it can affect who we feel we are. It can affect our identity. On the other hand, it also fills me with a lot of excitement for what is to come in heaven. Maybe I will not be that person on this earth for another, I don't know, 40, 60 years that I have left of life, hopefully. But once I am in heaven, I will finally be that person who I envision here on earth that I can be, a good person. And that's also really exciting. But it's a little bittersweet knowing that I can try and be my best, and we should strive to be our best. But to finally achieve that end goal, we will not achieve it here. We will achieve it in heaven. So it's very bittersweet, and I just can't help but feel a little conflicted about that.
Yes. Isaac said this brokenness, sin, etc., is a temporary condition unless we make that final choice against God and make it our identity in the end. Until that, it is just a condition. Yes. Amen. Deja.
Oh no, I was just going to encourage Johnny. I'm like, it's okay. It's temporary. Please don't be sad. I know, I get it though. Like, it's like, oh, I want to be good now. Like, I'm impatient. I'm like, God, I want to be good now. I want to be perfect now. I don't want to be a procrastinator anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to be a yapper all the time and I say the wrong thing. I just want to be good now. But it's like, you know what? Like Johnny said, it's like when we get to heaven, we'll be not only will we be the person we think we would want to be, we're gonna be even better. Like God has such a great plan for us that we can't even think the Bible even says like we can't even imagine or even think the things that He has for us. So it's like I was like, oh Johnny, we got it.
And
we, we need a little emoji that goes like, yeah, 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 to support.
and
Good.
Pastor Chris makes a great point too in saying that we cannot use it as an excuse either. I work very closely with people who are in the mental health um, world, and I have very close family members who suffer from very severe mental health issues. For example, I have one who is bipolar 1 disorder. And one of the things that their psychiatric nurse practitioner has been telling them is, look, this is a condition, using that word, this is a condition that you have that has negative effects on your life. But you can be proactive and you can take initiatives and you can do things to overcome and to return to the person who you believe you can be and know you can be. This is very big that we see in the mental health world, where in many cases you're even born with some things, whether it be neurotransmitter issues or hormone issues, right? But you cannot just put out a blanket statement and say, "Oh, well, I have this condition and that's that." This is Pastor Chris said, we cannot use it as an excuse, but we have to also be very intentional in what we do, knowing that we have this condition on us. In the mental health world, it may be therapeutic sessions, it may be medication, whatever they recommend. In the spiritual world, what do we have to do? Well, we know.
Yes, yes, yes. While we're here, we have to see what we be aware so we know who and what we need to surround ourselves with to be able to get to closer to God and salvation and wait patiently until He returns and all of this to be over. Okay. Which idea challenged you the most? Trusting God versus trusting self, the idea of free will, the role of shame, or the idea that the problem is deeper than behavior? Marcos.
Again, the idea that the problem is deeper than behavior.
Mm.
I feel like it's, at least for many Christians, when we're taught. I'm just going to tell you guys, I grew up in a Christian education system, and I still remember Bible class in the morning. And I'm going to quote what we were taught in the morning. What is sin? All the bad things we do. So from a child, you're learning sin is what I do. The problem is what I do. When really the issue is much deeper than that. Sin is a separation. It is a breaking of a relationship, as we've been talking about. So for me, that's something that really immediately jumped out. It's like that is the hardest thing from, especially for us that grow in here. You know, it's just a lot easier to teach people that the issue is the behavior, when really the behavior is just aftermath of the breaking of the relationship.
It's what you can see. So it's easy for us to blame what we can see, what we can do. It's so much harder to change the heart and see what is the intention behind the behavior, or what is the context of why the behavior happened. What was in the background that pushed to that? But we have to also have mercy on that kind of understanding, because that's what they understood. That's the best that they had. And I know they do that with the intention to protect the children, raise them with God, raise them to avoid those things that are going to hurt them. But once we become older and we're able to analyze things and question and understand that that's just not working, it's where the struggle happens. And then some just abandon God completely, others just leave church, others get really angry, so that's why I wanted to create this space. That's why I wanted to reach young adults before it gets to extremes. Isaac says here, and that's why it's so difficult to let go. It's so deep and hurts so bad to remove. Yeah, it's a splinter that it's bone deep. Yep, yep. Xavier, did you get up to say something, or you just?
Nah, that splinter that's bone deep, that one hit. That was the sensory details hitting there. I was like, oh, I gotta adjust. That was a rough one.
That is too funny. Anybody else wants to comment on what challenged you, idea that challenged you the most? If
I
not,
think
go
Chris,
ahead.
you had said something, I think it was you were talking about like the war in heaven aspect and the freedom of will, and you said it in a very succinct way that I've never quite you were saying if somebody says like why do bad things happen or like, and you said something to the effect of like free part of God giving free will is allowing the fullness of the consequences of that free will to play out to prove his character, which it's like that, oh, that's a rough truth to sit with because it's like in fully letting like all the consequences of free will, good and bad free will, play out for billions and billions of people through all the ages of mankind, inevitably you're going to have butterfly effects of good and bad happening. And these terrible atrocities are going to happen. And it's going to be like, why would a loving God allow this to happen? And I think when questions like that happen, and there's such deeper, more personal questions about like why would God take this innocent like, and they weren't even a year old, they weren't even a month old, they were days old, hours, like these hard questions. And I think there's a tendency to like in anthropomorphizing, like making God like us rather than like thinking like this is an infinite being who we are, yes, we're made in his image, but we do not have all his capacities. That's a whole nother sermon series. That we tend to think that God like intentionally, and it gets into this weird area. I've had this discussion with a couple of friends who are non-believers about like the intersection of predestination and free will, and that is a wild one to have. But it's basically I was having this conversation with a non-believer, and he's like, "So God isn't surprised by anything," and I was like, No, because he's like, because you believe God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. So he can't be surprised by anything. I was like, no, yeah, I would agree with that. And he's like, so then when like is he allowed like it was so difficult for us to like come to this like so is he allowing that baby to die? That was like where we were going with it. And I was like, I personally and I'm confident in this belief for myself is like it does not give God joy to see the sorrow of sin play out.
No.
That it never does. But this entire great controversy is like, I have to let it play out because then you would say the trial is rigged of my character. If I just snapped my fingers and prevented all the bad from happening, you'd say, I took away your free will.
Yes.
And then, or we wouldn't even know he took away our free will because then we would just be automatons at that point in time. So it's such a like ah, that
Yeah.
these are the sounds I have at the end of it.
Let me tell you, this is my favorite Bible study. When I do a Bible study, this is like an hour long of session, and it's the one that I take the time to be able to explain because these are the questions that I had. If God knows everything, if He knows the future, why did He created Lucifer, first of all? And if He created Lucifer, why didn't He just eliminate Lucifer when things went bad? But if we stop to think about it, oh, and the free will thing and the predestination.
And like a question I asked my mom, like I've been raised Adventist, a question I had, I was like, why did Jesus wait till he came when he did? Like, why didn't he just instantaneously like nip this in the bud?
Yes, yes. But we have a very narrow view of the whole story, of the great conflict. We just see the things that are right in front of us. God sees everything. We are a testament, not just to ourselves, humans, but to humans in all generations, but to all of the created beings, the celestial beings that are watching and seeing. Was Lucifer right when he said that God is not fair? Was Lucifer right when he said that my kingdom will be better? I'm going to put myself above the highest. I'm going to sit in the place of God because God is not fair. His kingdom is not fair. So it's like there is a lot more playing than what we can see. And if God had just eliminated Lucifer when he sinned the first time, or if he had not created Lucifer, would that be through free will? Do you see how much deeper this is? So God, in His wisdom, He had to allow the whole cycle of evilness to go through. So is the look at this, is the only guarantee that we have that sin is not going to come back. Can you guys connect the two? It's only by allowing the whole cycle that we gonna see. And the other thing, there's a part in the Bible that says that we'll have no more tears, no more pain, no more that. And people think that that's proof that we're not gonna remember anything. That's not true. If we did not remember everything, what is the guarantee that sin wouldn't come back? So not only we're gonna remember everything, we're gonna have seen everything, and we're gonna choose to never sin again. Woo! I'm starting to preach here. Let's stop. Deja, it's going to be your last comment because we have 3 minutes. Not your last comment, the last comment. I'm not telling yours.
No, you're fine. Um, what Xavier was saying, it just brought me to it just all boils down to relationship. Like as women, I don't have any children, but as women, it's like, oh, I want to have a kid. I know I'm going to go through pain, but I want to have a kid. Why do I want to have a kid? Because I want someone to love. I want this little person to love me. And so it's like, oh, why did God have children knowing that he's going to go through pain, these horrible labor pains, hey, Revelation, and all these horrible things he's going to go through, seeing his children die, seeing his children go through all this pain because he knows he's going to have people in the end who loves him freely. They chose to love him. Or even in the end, like after you have a baby, there's a chance that that baby will rebel against you. That child may grow up and hate you and say, I hate you, mom. Like, why go through that pain? Because there's still that possibility that this baby will love you. So it all boils down to relationship. God loves us and he wants a relationship with us, and he is willing to go through the pain and the trials that he has to go through seeing his children die, to know that though he will have us to love, and vice
Yes.
versa.
Yes, yes. Let me read here from Corey. God wants to help and restore every single person on this planet. Yes. It comes down to the freedom of choice of accepting or denying the assistance being provided. God has so many possibilities for everyone to bring about healing and growth. God is the sculpture and we are the clay. Sometimes things do take time when God is shaping every single person. God knows everything from the beginning to the end. Yes, 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 yes. By the way, if you like to be part of the panel next week, please send me a text. You guys have access to the text that comes direct to me. You can put it here. I need people to participate in the panel every week. And I love spend this time with you guys. We are coming to an end of our second episode of the fourth season of our online church. Next week, we are, man, this topic today is for me so important. I wish we could go 2 hours just talking about this, but we will continue. This is not the only time, and we are here for you. Thank you all for participating. Please let me know if you can be part of the panel next week, and the following weeks. We have 6 more weeks to go. And love you guys. Any last comments? Any last? No, 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 no. We're good. Okay. Thank you guys. Bye bye. Guys, have a great afternoon. Go outside. Go have fun outside. No, Marcus is like, I don't like outside. Thank you so much for participating. I see you all next week. Kisses. Bye.